Hi everybody, it's Sarah. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to share another story with you. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. On this channel, I routinely do astrology, tarot, and readings. I also talk about spirit and totem animals, crystals, the chakras, meditations, and healing, as well as talk a little bit about Reiki too. I was recently a guest on Make Miracles Happen, and it was the October issue, so we talked about ghost stories. And welcome to the new followers. But then I started getting lots of questions about ghosts, and then also I got an interesting one about monsters. Have I ever encountered a monster? And I had to think. And at that point, I kind of realized, my life's a little bit odd if I had to think about it, right? How do you define a monster? And so often we have encounters with unexplainable or unknowable things, and we just kind of have to shake it off and move forward because there aren't really any answers. So I don't really like sharing stories like that where there isn't a clear answer at the end, but I'm going to share one with you today, so be prepared. So grab a cup of tea and let's do this. The first story that came to mind was an odd encounter I had while driving home one evening. I want to say this happened about a decade ago. Around that time. My son and I had just returned from a trip to Europe, and we flew into the Austin, Texas airport. After customs and collecting the bags, we headed out home. At that point, we lived approximately 70 miles south of Austin. So after leaving Austin and getting out in the country area, we were driving on a stretch of country road. It was blacktop or paved road, but it was 2-lane. Out in the middle of nowhere, we had cattle pastures on each side. So it was barbed wire, few trees, some grass, and cows for miles. And really the whole stretch from Austin to my home was this, a few small towns in between, and then cow pasture. No lights on the highway or anything like that. But it wasn't dark yet either. Just your general central South Texas environment. Lovely, you know. The sun was low, but it hadn't gone down yet, and we were headed south. No traffic to speak of on this 2-lane section of road, as I said, out in the middle of nowhere. I was tired, but I wasn't exhausted from the flight, and, I had rested on the flight, so I felt pretty good. I was probably going between 65 and 70 down this road, and in my peripheral vision, which I have fortunately very good peripheral vision, and FYI, it has to do with opening up the chakras, but that's another story. I saw something in the corner of my eye on the left, and I was driving. My first thought was, oh gee, it's probably a deer or a herd of deer, which is likely on that stretch of road. And as we, get closer to twilight, I immediately started slowing down. I didn't, hit the brakes, but I started slowing down because where there's one deer, there's usually several. I also made a decision to get centered and push out Reiki to the deer, telling them to stand in place until we pass by. And when I began doing this, it didn't really feel like this was a deer. And I know you're going to ask me in the comments, what does a deer feel like, Sarah? They have a certain vibration, and that's about the only way I can put it into words. And it didn't feel like that. But honestly, I did that thing we all do, and I second-guessed myself, thinking, oh gosh, I'm tired. It's been a long flight, I'm probably just tired, and it probably is deer. It's probably just me. As I started kind of slowing down and trying to figure out where the deer were, I tried to see how many there were. And as I said, I had planned on using Reiki to just tell them to stand still till we passed. I looked back and I noticed that there was something moving fast. And it was almost pacing us, and it was low to the ground, not like how deer leap or run. This was totally different. There weren't any cattle towards the road or anywhere that I could see on either side of the road. And it could be that there weren't any in those particular fields, or it could be that, they'd gone somewhere else to prepare for the night. I don't know. But this didn't move like a cow. It didn't move like a deer or an antelope. It moved very much like a heavily muscled predator. So as I said, it was still daylight. I didn't have my lights on or anything, but there were scrub brush and there's trees and, stuff in the field. So it's not like I could get a clear view of it, but it looked like a lion or something like that. Massive, the size of a lion, and built muscular like that. So it looked really weird, but it didn't look right either. So I slowed a bit more but I didn't slam on the brakes. But it seemed to speed up when I slowed down. And I'm trying to tell my son to look, do you see that? And he's, trying to move around in the truck to see, because, you all know I see things that not everybody does. So it's like, is this some crazy spirit running in the field? What's happening here? As he tried to look around me, I'm trying to drive and pay attention to the road. It looked like it actually was now not just pacing the truck, but it was speeding up. And I'm probably still going at least 55. And, it's like, what animal can do that? And so that was just really odd. So I glanced back at the road, and we're on a straightaway at this time with a gentle roll to it. I'm trying to pay attention to the road, and suddenly it looks like it's starting to angle to the left, like it's going to cut across the road. And I thought, oh my God, it's going to run in first to the barbed wire fence that separates the field, and then what? Is it going to just jump over the fence or go through the fence and then end up on the road? Am I going to hit it? Or is it coming after the truck? What is it doing? Most animals run away from vehicles. They don't run towards them. And, all of this goes through your mind really fast. Instinct really took over, and I took my foot off the gas, and we started preparing for basically impact or something. And I also decided if it was coming after us, we would see just how fast this truck could go. I don't know how it got over the fence because I was not looking at that moment, but it ended up running across us, probably not more than 10 foot in front of us, as it cleared the truck, cleared both lanes, and then ran off to the right. And it was moving. I mean, it was hauling butt. It was moving. It didn't look at us. It kept its face straight ahead. And it was, we could see it quite well, and I really thought we were going to slam into it. The thing looked really bizarre. It was pink, like a person, and actually it looked like a person, well, kinda. Well, a person that could move like a lion running on all fours. Its legs looked jacked up like a cat's legs as opposed to, human long legs. And it was moving faster than any human could have possibly ever moved. It was major freaky. It looked to be thin, but also muscular, if that makes any sense. And it was really quick, though. I mean, this was like a split second, almost to the point of I was really like, did I imagine that? Except that I saw it running in on my left and was able to actually turn my head and see it moving and then see it cross the road. This part of Texas, I think it probably started in the 70s. People moved out of the city and bought rural land in Texas, just cheap farmland out in the middle of nowhere, right? And it continued into, well, it's probably still going on, but people would set up menageries and private zoos or private wildlife parks. So there were lions, zebras, giraffes, hippos. There was all kind of animals that didn't belong there out, in the sticks. Turn down this dirt road and go down 3 miles and you're at somebody's, compound. That was actually relatively normal at one time. I remember when I was in high school, a friend of mine told me that she was going to visit her grandmother out in the country. She's in the middle of South Texas in July, and there is a full-grown lion laying on a oak tree limb. Yeah. Needless to say, she thought she was crazy, but turns out several people saw the same thing, and it was escaped from someone's compound. So, I mean, yeah, it did happen. Thought about that. Could it have just been an escaped animal? Because at one time, you didn't have to have a permit to keep wild animals, and figure some of them got away, I mean, there was a guy I went to school with who had 2 tigers in his yard, which is kind of an odd thing, talking about it. But since then, they've put in laws and things where you couldn't do it. But there are several game reserves, and there are several places like that where people can go and hunt exotic animals as well. So it's not uncommon to see weird wildlife. And it's quite possible, a lion could have escaped into the brush 20 years ago and mated and had some kind of weird offspring. But this didn't look feline in any way except for the way that it was moving and the fact that it was as big as a lion. I don't know if you've ever been to the zoo or anything and seen one. They're incredibly big. Television doesn't do them justice. But it was really bizarre. So I don't know. Like I say, I only saw it for a split second and then it was gone. And I really thought I was going to run over it. So I started, basically preparing for impact, and then nothing. So that was, lots of adrenaline and then nothing. My son, he was all right, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, did you see that? And he's like, yeah, what was it? And I'm like, I don't have a clue. We go home, we unpack, I didn't call anybody till the next day and told people, we were back and stuff, and kind of like shared the story around with people, and some people in that area had spotted something similar. They didn't describe it quite the way that I did, other than it was just a very pink color and that it moved really fast, but like no one had really seen it enough to make a judgment call or to compare it, to something else. They thought it must just be some kind of wild animal that had escaped, which, and it could have been, but yeah, it was really, really odd. I did a search before. I recorded this to see if there was anything online. And of course, broad search, human looks like lion that runs fast. You don't get a lot like that. Probably could have narrowed it down better. But the only thing that really came up was the chupacabra. The chupacabra legends are in that part of Texas. And I think one of the first stories I ever shared was an encounter with something that had killed my neighbor's goats and broke into my greenhouse that a lot of people thought was the chupacabra. Anyway, I'll link that story if you want to listen to it too. If this thing was a chupacabra, then it would be eating elephants. It wouldn't be eating goats. Because like I say, it was massive. Closer to a wild or feral hog, but without the hair, if that makes any sense. Because it didn't look like it had any hair, but it looked like it had a human head. And of course, the body was shaped differently. The legs were not like a hog's leg. They were more like cat legs, if that makes any sense. Yeah, freaky, right? So I did kind of look around, because we had slowed way down at this point, but there was no one else on the road, so, it was relatively safe. Looked around, I didn't see a herd of them, thank goodness. I didn't see anything moving. No cattle, no deer, nothing. No birds in the sky, nothing. So, yeah. But anyway, I don't have any answers as to what it was, but yeah, that was an interesting encounter. If you have seen something like this, or if you have an idea of what you think it could be, I'd love to hear in the comment section below. And also, if you've seen something freaky that you would consider to be a quote-unquote monster, let me know. And it's that perception thing. If that was a wild animal, it wasn't a monster. It was, a wild animal. It's just, it didn't appear to be normal in any way. One of my friends said, yeah, you saw a were-lion, and I'm thinking it didn't look like a lion, though. It just moved like a big cat. It looked like a person with crazy legs. So I don't know. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening. And as always, if you like this type of content, let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll speak to you soon. Reiki blessings. Bye-bye.